Hey, it's Dr. Charles, aka CoachMD. In my over 30 years of medical practice, I have made it my goal to help you create a great life by achieving a strong mind, a healthy body, and an unshakable spirit. What I want to talk to you today is about mushrooms, right? No, not the ones that you put in your food, but the ones regarding psilocybin. Here's an article which talks about the largest psilocybin trial finds that the psychedelic Let's start. Largest psilocybin trial finds the psychedelic is effective in treating serious depression. It's kind of an awkward title, but let's take a look what it means. Eagerly awaited results of the largest ever study of psilocybin were announced Tuesday, with Compass Pathways revealing the psychedelic drug was highly efficacious as a therapy for treating resistant depression. Still, the company's stock price dropped 16.4% by the close of trading, perhaps because of the safety concerns among investors. Now, mind you, I've talked about this a lot. Studies can be biased, and this certainly, there is an incentive for this company to come out with a study that supports its major product. So we have to take all studies with a grain of salt and really don't look at headlines, but you need to refer to somebody who is an expert at perusing and understanding the intricacies of most trials and studies. People throw that term around a lot. Oh, studies show. Oh, no studies show, or this or that, to seem intelligent. In fact, most doctors, when they're approached by a patient who comes who had read something on the internet about something, the first thing that they'll say if they don't know anything about it, oh, studies don't show anything or don't support that. Well, that's a code word where I don't really know much about this. So just be on the lookout for when people throw around that term studies. Studies show this or studies don't show that, especially people in the medical profession. I hate to say it. I mean, when we're talking about, now I'm going to spell this out because I've been canceled a few times on YouTube because I've talked about COVID virus, and also the potential treatments of it, because there are many studies that you will hear people say there aren't any studies, but there are many studies, and you can look that on the internet at early COVID-19.com shows many studies in areas where we're told that there aren't any studies. But anyway, that's an aside point. But let's look at this article. The Phase 2B study is the largest randomized controlled double-blind trial of psilocybin. Now, double-blind means that half the people get the drug and half don't, and the people who are administering the drug don't know it. So the people don't know what they're giving. So supposedly double-blind randomized studies are supposed to be the most pure of studies because it tries to eliminate bias. But that's a whole other discussion because it doesn't always work that way. But so the double-blind trial of psilocybin, the psychedelic compound in magic mushrooms, the company said it found that patients who were given the highest dose, 25 milligrams, had a significant decrease in depressive symptoms compared to those given 1 milligram, which is such a low dose it functions as a placebo. Placebo meaning you give something like a sugar pill, and you tell them that's going to lower your blood pressure, and it does because of a placebo effect, which is, again, the power of our brain when we are suggested something. Overall, 29.1% of patients in the highest dose group were in remission 3 weeks after treatment, compared to 7.6% of those in the control group, and more than a quarter of the patients in the 25 milligram arm were still in remission 3 months after treatment. I mean, that's pretty impressive, but let's look a little bit more. Those who received the highest dose also experienced an average reduction on a measure of clinical depression, the Montgomery Asperger Depression Rating Scale that was 6.6 points greater than those who took 1 milligram. Other patients were given a 10 milligram dose, but there was not a statistically significant impact for those patients compared with the 1 milligram arm. I mean, I know a lot of people would like it to work, right? I mean, if the psilocybin in the mushrooms, which is more of a natural treatment rather than the pharmacological treatments. So I know there's a desire to do that, but you really want to make sure not everything in nature is safe. Many poisons are in nature, right? And the psychedelic effects of mushrooms have hurt a lot of people when they're tripping out. But, that aside, if you can get it to a dosage which is safe and where the benefits outweigh the risks, then, of course, it might be worthwhile. Everyone agrees such a result hasn't been seen before in depression research, so we're incredibly happy with the results, says Lars Christian Wild, co-founder and president of Compass. Of course, he wants it. It's his company. Boris Heifetz, a neuroscience researcher at Stanford who studies psychedelics and was not part of the study, agreed the results are super promising. The effectiveness of psilocybin at 3 weeks, according to Compass's study, is roughly comparable to the effects of ketamine at 1 day, according to a smaller 2013 study, he added, which suggests the benefits of psilocybin hold up well over time. Now, ketamine, if you're not familiar with it, is an anesthetic that's used in anesthesia, which has been used off-label for pain control, for depression, but it's also been used illicitly as a date rape drug because it could put people in kind of a stuporous state. But in certain controlled areas where the dosage is controlled and the administration is controlled, it has been used off-label for, like I said, pain control, severe depression. We're still missing a lot of detailed data here. Okay, that's important, he added, but the summary results are pretty good news. The study, which enrolled 233 patients at multiple sites across Europe and North America, is the most rigorous trial on psilocybin for treatment-resistant depression and adds considerable weight to earlier, smaller studies of the drug that were also promising. 233 patients is not really that large, especially when you cut it in half getting a placebo and half getting the drug. So 115, roughly 115 people received the true magical mushroom or psilocybin-containing medication. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has granted Compass Pathways treatment breakthrough therapy designation. Interesting, meaning the drug approval process will be accelerated if studies continue to show positive results. All right, not bad. Compass is working toward starting a phase 3 trial next year. Current results suggest it'll likely use a 25 milligram dose, but Wild said the decision will be made following conversations with regulators. The result released by the company, which have not been published in a medical journal or peer-reviewed journal, include side effects data showing a small number of serious adverse side effects. Okay, this is important. Overall, 12 patients reported treatment-emergent serious adverse events, 5 of whom were in the 25 milligram group and 6 in the 10 milligram group. This included suicidal behavior and self-injury. Just 1 patient in the 1 milligram group experienced a serious adverse effect. So if you have 12 patients in the treatment-emergent serious adverse event, 12 patients and 5 of whom were in the 25 milligram group. So I don't know how it breaks down, but if there's only 115 in the treatment group and you have 12 who are experiencing side effects, that's almost 10%, which is not insignificant. The suicidal behaviors were reported at least 1 month after the administration of treatment, and they occurred in patients who were essentially non-responding, Guy Goodwin, Compass Chief Medical Officer, said in an investor call Tuesday morning. So maybe that's why the stock dropped. In at least one case, though, suicidal ideation was reported early on in treatment, he added. The numbers are small enough for the difference between treatment arms not to be statistically significant. I don't know about that, said Wild, noting the suicidal behaviors and ideation are common among depressed patients. I know you hear that all the time, and that's kind of a fail-safe when you're looking at medications to treat these ailments. We're dealing with a severe patient population, both in terms of patient severity and duration of their depressive episode, he said. Unfortunately, those events have to be expected. There were 3 suicides in studies of esketamine, the only psychedelic currently approved for treatment-resistant depression, he pointed out. Researchers in previous studies have reported a disappointment reaction whereby patients' symptoms worsen because the novel treatment doesn't immediately cure their depression. The difference between the treatment arms is unexpected, said Heifetz, as patients tend to get more depressed if they're assigned to placebo and don't get effective treatment. If anything, I'd expect it to go the other way, but he added suicidal behaviors are common in research on depressed patients. That means it's not attributable to psilocybin having a suicidal side effect, he said. Well, let's see when they do the phase 3 studies, and hopefully they're honest studies and not biased. Goodwin said the researchers plan to study the data in more detail, including analyzing responses to a questionnaire all patients took for suicidal assessment to better understand the connection. And again, if you or someone you know is considering suicide, contact a National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. I hope you find this information beneficial. If you know anybody who is suffering from depression, certainly get them the help they need. And if you are, do the same. And understand that, again, depression, anxiety, this is all a manifestation of our automatic brain, our primitive animalistic nature, which causes us to fight or flee danger, threat, or vulnerability. And unfortunately, in our world, we may not be in the jungle, we may not be in the Pride Lands, but our dangers are life itself sometimes. And it's very heavy, the pressures that we have of trying to live and navigate the world and everyday life. And yes, there are genetic tendencies for people to suffer from these psychological ailments, but in all, it falls into the same category as the automatic brain, as I've talked about in my book Brain Drain, or my ebook Fake News Stories by Your Brain, where I break it down and discuss this in much more detail. So until next time, I'm Dr. Charles, urging you and encouraging you to seek help if you need it, and to stay strong in mind, in body, and in soul. Bye for now.
Dr. Charles, CoachMD. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to like and comment below. I'd love to hear from you. If you think you have a friend who might benefit from this video, share it with them. For access to exclusive content, support my Patreon. There you'll get private access to videos, meditations, health tips, even relationship and financial tips. You'll have a say in what I produce and be able to participate in a monthly call with me. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. See you soon.